And we're off.
Have you ever noticed that people say a lot of stupid things that don't make any sense? I do. It really fucking annoys me when someone says something that is stupid. Fucking tired. My parents have said plenty of things that were stupid, especially my mother, although my father said plenty of stupid things as well. The earliest stupid thing I remember my mother saying is when I was only 5 years old, and my brother and his friend locked me out of my room. And I said, "Will you assholes open up the door?" And my mother heard me say that and said, "You're not supposed to use that word, that's a bad word." I then said, "I hear you say that word all the time." And she responded by saying, "I'm an adult and it's okay for me to use that word, but not you." For the first time, I got to be exposed to double standard hypocrisy fucking bullshit. That would be the first time in an endless series of stupid things that my mother said. When I was a little boy, back in the days before I had any pubic hair, I was bullied by all that conformist pieces of trash who I went to school with, and struggled with being able to learn in school and keep up with the cutthroat, brutal speed that I was supposed to do things. My parents made everything worse instead of better. Surprise, surprise. There was a day when I was in the 3rd grade and I got into a mud ball fight, and I came home all covered in mud. Did my mother handle the situation by being supportive? No. She handled it by being a fucking bitch, and knowing that she was so unhinged, she was throwing shoes against the wall while she was vacuuming. My mother lectured me about how I need to act mature, while she treated me like a... I don't know if I can say this on YouTube anymore, like a fucking R-word person. There's nothing more mature than screaming at the top of her lungs and throwing shoes against the wall. Another example of double standard hypocrisy fucking bullshit. Before I got pubic hair, my mother did something right. She was at least nurturing a lot of times, which created a constructive bond. She knew that I had weird and eccentric habits, but she left me alone. All that started to change once I started going through puberty. Because I was bullied by those fucking conformist pieces of fucking filth, I was put in special ed, and I wasn't put in special ed because I had Asperger's, but I was put in special ed because I had a behavior disorder, quote unquote, for being unique and different. I don't even want to mention his name, but during the summer of 1976, my mother on an almost daily basis would say, "Mr. L is going to say something about your fingernails. Mr. L is going to say something about you not combing your hair." I had to listen to that fucking bullshit almost every day during that summer. If that's not all, that was when my mother gave me a lecture about the ways that normal people have a bowel movement. She said that it is not healthy unless you take a shit in the morning right after eating breakfast, including the importance of drinking orange juice. I don't like orange juice because of all those peels or whatever the fuck they call it, and I have sensory issues with that. Anyway, my mother told me that she was visiting her dysfunctioning parents, which are my dysfunctional grandparents, and she drank a glass of orange juice, and then she told me that she walked right into the bathroom. She was too uptight to go into the details, but having a bowel movement is totally disgusting, but it's also important. Once I started getting pubic hair, it was time for me to turn into a conformist and turn normal, which gets into another stupid thing that my mother said. We would be eating dinner, and then my mother would start screaming at me at the top of her lungs, and she told me that I need to get with it. While she was being an unhinged, loose cannon fucking bitch, she would say that shit over and over again. I found out that get with it means turning into a normal, boring, mediocre conformist, and I need to give up all the things that made me happy, which included my weird, quote-unquote, eccentric habits. I told her that you never bothered me about things like that before, and she said, "I thought you would outgrow it." There's something about having pubic hair, which meant that it was time to give up all the things that made me happy just to please my mother and turn into a conformist. My mother also constantly said, "You need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps," which was another stupid thing she said, and I couldn't fucking stand it when she said that shit. Because I was showing signs of failing it to turn into a conformist, she was constantly in a bitchy mood and she was criticizing me. If that's not all, the nurturing that she once gave me went down the toilet, which led to the collapse of being able to bond with my mother. My mother would say all kinds of stupid things like, that would annoy the fuck out of me. My mother once told me that life is not a bowl of cherries for anyone, and I then asked, "How about John Wayne?" After I said that, she started yelling and screaming, and she went fucking ape shit because she thought that I meant John Wayne Gacy. I didn't say John Wayne Gacy. I said John Wayne. She was so fucking unhinged and irrational. She didn't even fucking listen to what I said when I meant to say John Wayne. There was another time, however, that I was pissed off at my brother constantly treating me like shit, so she justified him treating me like shit because he had a job and I didn't at the time. I then responded by saying, "Well, then there's nothing wrong with what John Wayne Gacy did," and she went fucking apeshit. And then I responded by saying, "John Wayne Gacy was a good construction worker. So by your own logic, as long as a person is capable of holding down a job, then they can do whatever they want. No longer how heinous it is." Of course she went even more fucking apeshit because my mother hated it whenever I called her out on her stupidity and bullshit. You wonder why the bonding went down the toilet. After I moved to Florida, my mother told me even stupider things. And not only that, Florida is a fucking cesspool of fucking shit and the weather is too fucking hot there. I got traffic tickets in Illinois and I got traffic tickets in Florida. I decided to go to court in Florida. Maybe I got this backwards. In Illinois, I went to court to fight a traffic ticket. It was a $50 fine, and if I didn't pay it, I would be hit with a $10 in court cost, and it'd be $60 total, and that bullshit alone pissed me off. I had no idea it was a much bigger nightmare in Florida, because when I went to Florida to court to fight a $52 fine traffic ticket, well, when I went to court to fight the traffic ticket, they decided to double the fine on me to give me a $100 fine, and things are so fucking horrible in that shithole state. They could have raised the fine to $500. That was in 1987. Who knows how high they could raise the fine now? And because I didn't have enough money to pay the fine, they decided to spend my driver's license on the spot. That is just a one countless example of how Florida is run by a bunch of horrible fucking rotten fucking bastards. But when I told my mother that that the worst that would happen in Illinois is I would only have to pay. The worst that would happen in Illinois is I would just have to pay an extra $10 for court costs. But my mother said that they started doing that in Illinois. Well, guess how she found out that they started doing that in Illinois? Well, you know where she got her information from? She got it by pulling it out of her ass. Then when the weather was too fucking hot out with 90-degree temperatures during the month of March with dew points that were in the 70s, she told me that it gets hot in the Chicago area during the month of March every day. She also got that information by pulling it out of her ass. Did she really think that I was that fucking stupid to actually believe that? I have the data and records to prove that she didn't know what the fuck she was talking about, or she was intentionally wanting to bullshit me. And if that's not enough stupidity, while I was living in Florida and when Hurricane Andrew hit, it completely obliterated the cities of Florida City and Homestead. And I told my mother that this is another reason why Florida is a cesspool of shit. And my mother tried to tell me that the Chicago gets hurricanes too. And I said, Chicago don't get no fucking hurricanes. Well, then she had to concede a little bit on that bullshit statement by telling me, but they get tornadoes. And I will now get into some of the stupid things that my mother said that I don't even think any other parent would say. For example, my mother once said, living in poverty is good for you because you learn to appreciate the good things in life that spoiled brats don't.
Brother.
So in other words, be grateful when someone throws you some crumbs because you're not good enough to having anything better. And did you know that Beverly Hills is the most dangerous city in the country? That's because those rich spoiled brats and those gangs and they're shooting people while the ghetto has such an amazing low crime rate. If that's not stupid enough, when I was in the 6th grade and the teacher told me that I brought it upon myself that I was bullied, and the reason that she said that is because she's a bully apologist and she's a fucking cunt. Anyway, she got knocked up and she was going to pop a brat out her stinky, smelly twat. Anyway, my mother said that because she is going to procreate, she will have a child who is bullied and then she will understand what it's like to be mistreated. How the fuck did she know that? That's not the last of the stupid things that she said. I really enjoyed listening to Steve Dahl, who happens to be the guy who blew up the disco records, and he used crude sexual humor and he constantly said the word penis on the radio. He even called the Bijou Theater, which is a gay porno theater, and he played their messages on the air. Then Steve Dahl's wife was pregnant, which means that she was going to pop a brat out her stinky, smelly twat. Then Steve Dahl had the Peters brothers on his show. You know what repulsive pieces of shit assholes they are?
No.
Well, if you never heard of the Peters brothers, they were these authoritarian, fundamentalist, Bible-thumping pieces of shit who would go after rock music and tried to get it banned because they claimed that they were satanic. Anyway, my mother said, now that Steve Dahl is going to become a father, I can tell he is changing into a moral man and he will embrace integrity and truth on his radio show. You can't make this stuff up. Turns out he only had the Peters brothers on his show because these authoritarian right-wing fascist fucking Christians blackmailed the radio station and they blackmailed Steve Dahl for not letting them come on his show. The bonding with my mother started to come back after I moved to Minnesota, but it fell apart because she was oversensitive to too many of the things that I said, along with the thoughts and ideas that I have.
Very good.
Where you at with time?
It's 12:55.
I got a minute and a half.
Something like that. I wanted to mention something. When your mother said that teacher is going to have pop a brat out of her twat, your words, not hers, and they're going to be bullied.
Stinky, smelly twat?
It's stinky, and the kid is going to be bullied. She was actually being supportive to you. Like, well, the teacher didn't treat you well, but she's gonna get her karma served to her. So she was actually being supportive.
Yeah, but did that happen?
I guess it didn't happen, did it?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah, but there's no telling it's going to happen. I mean, your mother wasn't a fortune teller.
But she jumped to conclusions.
She jumped to conclusions, but she still was being supportive in her own twisted way. Yeah. So there's that.
Kind of stupid way, but...
Yeah, but there's that. Anyway. But at least she did acknowledge that your teacher was being a cunt to you, even though she didn't say it in those words. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's one positive thing about that. But, she did say some stupid things like it's good to live in poverty. Why the hell is not as starving and not having medical care and not having any money supposed to be a good thing?
And you can't have any cool things either.
No, you can't have any cool things. It's now 14:35.
Well, I guess time to...
Okay, time for this to...